All right, so we will continue with the next part of the lecture series, and in this case, we are looking through what we call a for loop. Very common loop, for loop, and it's almost exactly the same as the concept is almost exactly the same as while loop, right? So very simple. Let's just say you have a string called name is equals to Walmart, right? Name is equal to Walmart Superstores. All right, that's the name, and I want to loop through. I want to go through each character here, right? Each character, and maybe do something with it, right? I want to go through each character. So using a while loop will be a little tricky, but you can use a for loop, right? For loop, and I can say, so what is this? This is your number one starting point, right? Starting point. Remember from the while loop, starting point or the counter, right? Starting point. Actually, this is not the starting point. This is your ending point here because it's a weird yeah. In this case, that concept doesn't apply here too much. You know the three rules. But let me either way, let me show you some for C in name. I'm going to say print. Now, how do I C2? Is it to upper or is it? I'm not sure how I think it's upper like that. If I want to uppercase this, let's see. If not, I have to quickly. Is it maybe to upper or upper? Okay, that's wrong. What if it's? Did I have double P? Sounds like I had triple P's. Did you mean super? No, why would I mean super? I think that's going to work. If not, I'm going to change it. Is upper, right? To upper. There's a way you can change it to upper, to uppercase, and I can't even recall that code. There we go. Right, and you see what happens, right? It changes. It's changing all the letters to uppercase, right? And you can also add something else here. You can say end equals single quote, and that will change this a little bit more. You see that? It removes that because print by default, it has a new line after it, right? So each time it prints something out, it will take your output to the next line and so forth. That's why when I run that, it has everything on its new line, right? But what if I wanted everything to be on one line? I don't want this. I want everything on one line. You can put this here and say end with that, or you can say end with a single, a space, such as like that, and you watch what happens when I put a space, right? I can even put like a dash, right, or a minus rather, right? You see how it puts it. So this is pretty cool, right? If you need to use it, you can use it very well. So this is basically called a enhanced for loop, right? It doesn't use a counter or I equal j or whatever. It works really well with a string or a list, right? It works really well, but this is something that you can. This loop basically says, for each variable c in this name, uppercase it. All right, so that's that one. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, next one I want to show you. Next one I want to show you is the for loop that is similar to a while loop, right? And here also you need, this for loop also needs to have those three things that we discussed. Okay, so in order to do that, by default, okay, I'm going to take this out, right? By default, you can say something like for I in range, and then in here, right? A range in here. You can, not that one. You can put here 10. let me show you that works, right? Print I. Okay, and I believe that should give me some kind of error. Okay, very cool, right? So when you write a loop like this, it basically knows, Python knows by default that I will start at 0. Not like the while loop. I was saying my counter, my first point was 0. Here it knows that I is 0 by default. All right, but what if I want I to be 1? That is where you change these variables that's sitting in here, right? So I'm going to put here starts at 1 comma, right? 1 comma 10. Let's put 2 comma 10, because then you will see what the difference is. 2 comma 10, right? So, right? Hey, it starts at 2, right? It starts at 2, it stops at 9. So what does these numbers mean to you? This means that is the starting point, right? That's the starting point, and that is the ending point, not inclusive, right? So 10 is not inclusive here. That's why it goes from 0 to 9. And then what if you say, hey, I want to, instead of incrementing by 1 each time, I want to increment by 2, right? You know how in the while loop we had I plus equals 2 or 5 or whatever it was, right? How do I do that? That's why you put a comma here and put 2. So those numbers, right, that tells you starting point, right? Starting point, and then ending, right? Ending, and then increment by, right? So that 1, 2, 3 rule that we saw in the while loop is right here, right? And your counter is I in this case. So memorize this, use this many times so you can understand what, how this works, because that is how a basic Python loop is, for loop is in Python. So now I'm going to change it to 100. Hopefully it prints a whole bunch of them, right? All the way to 100. All right. So that is pretty cool, right? That is pretty cool. It has normally one of the reasons I like Python is because it makes things easy. It makes things easy. And when I say easy is that, if I take all of this out and if I just put one number there, it automatically assumes that you are incrementing by 1, you're starting at 0, right? Don't need to say it, it's there already. Okay, likewise. So that is, we can change this a little bit. And then, so what if I want to do a for loop that's a count up, right? So I'm going to do for I in range, count up to from 0 to 10, right? So I'm putting 11 here. You must be saying, hey, professor, you want to count up, from 0 to 10, then why on earth are you putting 11, right? And the reason is because 11 is not inclusive, right? It's always, right? It's a less than, right? As long as it's less than. So remember the tab here. You cannot put stuff here because it will not take it. Remember the tab, right? The tab creates the scoping for this Python. So here I'm going to say print I, right? And I'm going to take this other thing out because it's going to kind of jump into my, or maybe leave it. Leave it. I can comment this out. So comment this out that way, comment this out that way too. Okay, running this, right? See that count up, right? 0 to 10, count up. How about a countdown, right? How about a countdown? So let's do a countdown here. Countdown from 10 to 0, right? Very simple, right? For I in range. I in range. So here you need to put those 3 values, because here you're telling what's the starting point, what's the ending point, and how you're going to count by. So my starting point is what? 10. I'm starting at 10, and I'm ending at 0. I'm putting 0 here because I'm going to show you something. 0, and I'm decrementing by -1. See that? And I'm going to print I right here. I want you to see the difference between that line of code and that line of code. Is almost the same thing, right? It's just working differently. It's just doing the opposite. Instead of a count up, it's doing a count down. All right, it starts at 10, 9, all the way to 1. But hey, I don't want 1, I want a 0, right? If you want a 0, that's the starting point. That's where it's going to end. It's going to, that's a conditional statement. It's going to check as long as the number is less than or greater than that, right? So here, I need to put a -1 because 0 is not inclusive, right? -1 is not inclusive. So now you see 0 is there. So that is how you do something like this, right? I mean, it's great what they have created. Okay, next one, right? Next one, I'm going to comment this out as well. What if we want to do the sum? Remember when we used the while loop, we did some kind of sum, right? And I'm going to say here, so your task is sum numbers, some number total numbers from, let's just go with 0 to 100, or sum the total of multiple of 6, right? Multiples of 6 from 0 to 100. So first thing you're going to need to do, anytime you see a question like that, first thing you need to do is to create a loop, a while loop or for loop. We're using for loop here. That will repeat that times, right? So basically, I'm going to do a for I in range starting at 0. I'm going to 100, but I'm going to 101. This is one thing that really bugs me about Python. I wish they had it inclusive, right? They had it inclusive, but they don't. And then I'm going to increment by, I don't need to include increment, but I'm just going to include it, right? By default, it knows it's 1, but I'm going to put it here. And then I'm going to print I. First thing for me to check if my numbers, my loop is working properly, right? So if it's working properly, it's going to start at 0 and go all the way to 100. So loop is good. I don't need this print statement anymore. How do I find out if a number is a multiple of something, right? So the way you can find out is you can use a mod, right? The modulo. I'm going to say x is equals to I mod 6, right? And the golden rule here is that if, x will be 0 if I is a multiple of spelling 6, right? Okay, you want to test it? Let's test it here. Print. I'm going to print print I, right? Well, I'm going to put if x is equals to 0, right? Then I'm going to print I, right? Oh, not that one, wrong one. Not sure why the wrong one got selected. See that? 6, 12, 18, 24, all the way to 96. So that looks correct to me. That looks correct to me. You see, one of the golden rules about programming is that you need to follow the rules of incremental programming. What does it mean? That means as you write little code, test it out. I had a student that emailed me this week and said, Professor, am I on the right path? And there wasn't in the 20 lines of code he or she wrote, there wasn't a single line of code that had a comment or a single line of code that had a print statement to see what was going on. And my question to them was, where is your comment and where is your print statements, right? How are you debugging your code? Debugging your code is an art, right? It's a technique, it's an art. And it all starts with the stupid thing of print statements, nothing else. You just verifying that the code you wrote looks good. That's the whole idea of doing this. All right, but my goal here is not to print those numbers. My goal here is to sum it, right? So I'm going to say total is equal to 0. Whenever you need to sum one of those, start with 0, right? Because nothing has been added. And then where in this for loop am I finding the multiples? Right here. So I'm going to replace that and say total is equal to total plus I. And you must be saying, hey, Professor, why on earth are you using I here? Because remember that I, as the loop is repeating, as it working, is it iterating, right? Iterating is the same word. As it's repeating, that value of I is incrementing from 0 to 1 to 3 to 4 to 5, all the way to 100. And each time, as the value of I is increasing, or incrementing, I'm checking, hey, I mod 6, is it a 0? And if it is a 0, then I know that I, at that point, is a multiple of 6. And then I'm going to add it together, right? Add it together. Let me, and I want to prove that it's working properly. How do I prove it? Simple. Print I total. That's it, right? That's it. Print it, run it here, and you see it's going to, right? It starts at 0, 0, and then 6, right? There 6 is a multiple of 6, and then the next number is 12, right? And add it to 18, next number 18, 24, and so forth, right? So it's looking good. So that is how basically you use a for loop, right? It's a pretty cool thing. I think this shows you, it's a great technique, right? One place student makes mistake here, whenever they're writing a loop, is they forget about this colon, right? Forget about this colon, forget about the tabbing. The tabbing is important. Like I said, it creates the scope. It tells that these 2 lines of code will only execute when that is true, when that expression is true, right? So you want to make sure that you have those tabbings. All right. Well, good luck. Hopefully this helps. Thank you.